Welcome in, everybody to Mailbox Sports. We tonight get to sort through some free agency, draft up some Christmas wish lists in terms of free agency as well, the draft, and we also get to have some of those nice NFL deliveries presented straight to your mailbox. Tonight, I am your lone host and president of the DJ Moore Fan Club, Postman 1914. As we know, I do have two co-hosts. Those guys are active teen fathers right now. They both have teenagers in sport. So tonight we will be flying the ship solo. Nonetheless, we will get into a nice breakdown of the 2025 free agency period, some draft perspectives, combine watch, and an overall wish list as to what we want to see those Chicago Bears have as far as a Christmas overall list. What do we want to see on the team? How do we want to see the team constructed? What things do we want to see have happen in this off season? And so today, I am trying out something a bit different for you guys. We got a lot of work to do in the interim, and we are still actively researching some things tonight. So we are going to do a cam-less stream. Going to watch us a little bit of Bears TV, follow up on a couple of articles that I've been privy to look at this afternoon and evening, I should say. Continue upon where you're at. You might be on that West Coast. Otherwise, we are going to talk draft wishes, people that we want, people we might get, people that we can see the Bears going ahead and selecting. Talk about those trades the Bears have already made in terms of fortifying the offensive line. And we will talk about those players that are still to come for free agency. As we know, March 10th is when people can officially make agreements, non-verbal and verbals. I don't know that you can put pen and paper until the 12th. However, next week, everybody gets to start dwindling down to that top 100 free agent list. I know personally the Bears' offensive line problems have been somewhat addressed. We get to touch base on those things and more in tonight's episode of Mailbox Sports. Otherwise, we got any questions from the comments or the chat, please feel free to interject at any given time. We will try to address those questions. Otherwise, it's all Bears all the time. We will bear down. Give me a moment as we queue up what is next on addressing the offensive line. Let's go. So, after a disappointing 2024 season, in which we had high hopes for the Bears, or at least I did. I can't tell you about everybody, but prognosticators and such didn't have us winning 5 games. This video here is going to try to outline some of the impactful moves that I think we will be making. If no one has been privy to know, yesterday the Bears acquired offensive guard, and I would like to say left guard, but I'm not sure what position he'll be playing. But offensive guard Jonah Jackson. Also today, the Bears traded away a 4th-round pick in next year's draft for All-Pro guard as well, Joe Thuney. Both of those guys originally played the left guard position. However, we will look at obviously where we think Jonah might go. And I say that because I'm not certain whether or not Jonah will be the day one starter, although I anticipated. He's been a Pro Bowler a couple times, but he's not been an All-Pro. That has been pretty much the career path of Joe Thuney. So while Joe is 32, a bit longer in the tooth, I do believe that he is the proverbial adult in the room. Joe was an All-Pro last year, 4-time Super Bowl champ, and he's been on the offensive line for one Tom Brady and one Patrick Mahomes. So I would think that that guy has a level of veteran leadership and presence that the Bears have lacked on the offensive line. Also, Jonah is not a holdover, but a guy that Ben Johnson touched base with, and Jonah saw his most success with in Detroit as a Pro Bowl right guard, I believe. So, yes, he did have Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow to bolster him in Detroit. Had a bit of a struggle this year. Not playing the whole season. Injuries kind of wally pipped him along with performance issues. he'll get an opportunity to have a fresh start with Ben Johnson again one more time. And also, Joe Tooney will get an opportunity to go ahead and, like I said, be the veteran presence, be the de facto best player in the room, and be the guy that everybody looks to in terms of getting some instruction and direction as far as those particular offensive line playmakers may go. Those guys are important, but all of those guys, for me, pale in comparison to the importance of getting a center for the Chicago Bears this offseason. Not many people come to mind when we speak of centers. I believe they have Indianapolis may allow their center to test the free agent markets, but I guess prime king, if you would, for all intents and purposes, has been Atlanta center Drew Dahlman. It is speculated that the Bears will go ahead and drop a boatload of cash on that guy, get him all of the money that a Brinks truck could back up to him so that he can be the future snapper, confidant, and big brother to a one Caleb Williams as they go out there and try to make magic. So I would anticipate Drew Dahlman being signed. However, until that is done, we look at guys like a Jarrett Wilson from Georgia. And I'm not really certain that personally I've done much research for the center position. I think Dahlman has been kind of the proverbial catch for the year. Everybody might want him. I think the Bears do have enough money to go ahead and throw bread at him, so we will absolutely get to find out whether or not Drew Dahlman or someone else will be commanding center. My Christmas wish list for the Bears at that particular position would be Drew Dahlman. For guard, while I wanted a Will Freeze to go ahead or Fries, however anybody might pronounce it, Will, if you out there, let me know. Jonah Jackson is not somebody that I scoff at because I trust the process right now, and Ben Johnson is the person who is putting that process in motion. So him and Ryan, I believe, will go ahead and do everything they need to do to get the line going. And I do believe that we will have other persons even added to that line via draft. I don't think the free agency, while it allows us to have a bit more flexibility in the draft, I do not believe that it takes us away from actually going out and selecting other offensive linemen in the draft, in the earlier rounds at that. Maybe not first round. Maybe we've allowed us some opportunity to trade back. But worst case scenario, I do believe it gives us flexibility to go ahead and look at the offensive line from a fortified growth perspective. Kieran Amagaji will be another piece to keep eyes on. And I do believe, let's see, we still got guys like Armand Mimbu, Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel. Those guys are still guards and tackles. Kelvin Banks Jr. Guys like that might still be available. If you traded back in the first round or maybe in the second round, you still have addressed the guard or maybe a potential future tackle to replace Braxton Jones. You never know. So I won't take off like the LSU left tackle, even though I've heard rumors today that old William is out there calling plays from the tackle position. I wouldn't know how feasible that is, but I heard it from someone who, for all intents and purposes, is a bit of a draftnik, kind of loves to dive deep into the NFL draft. Nonetheless, if we can go ahead and call it a day, I would say that Drew Dahlman will be the center that completes the trio in the middle of that offensive line, along with Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson. Jonah being on the right, Joe being on the left, Drew lining up in the middle. Braxton and Darnell, I believe, will have growth years, along with Kieran Amagaji and other guys on the offensive line to go ahead and solidify us. Have us about 7 deep. They did sign a reserve. They did sign a reserve or backup in terms of a restricted free agent deal with Bill Murray today. Bill had a pretty decent game last year before he got hurt. So I believe that he will be a nice depth piece, and they will look for other people to provide depth as well. But on that particular side, that starting caliber type of center is crucial for improvement in terms of the interior. And I believe that allows us to focus, like I said, our draft assets on other things via multiplying, trading back, acquiring more draft picks, so on and so forth. With those particular draft picks that you might acquire, I would like to think that the Bears would be finding a defensive playmaker. If we could all understand, the Bears' defense was, at best, inconsistent last year. Flashes of brilliance early in the season, high turnover rate that fluctuated. Some injury did lend his hand to that, along with some questionable decision-making by Matt Eberflus at times. However, the defense does need to improve. And in finding those particular improvements, we looked in several areas. The pass rush as a whole was absolutely insidious, to say the least. And to think about the parts of the, how can I put it? The run defense was atrocious. 32nd in the league, bottom of the league. Absolutely did nothing to stop anyone, and everyone looked like Pro Bowl running backs and offensive lines against us. Cannot happen again this year. As we know, Andrew Billings suffered a torn pec somewhere mid-season. That did dissipate the run defense somewhat. However, the defense was abysmal, to say the least, when it came to stopping the run all season. And pass rush pressures and sacks were not the things that the Bears did well, and that will absolutely show itself in your secondary. But not getting those requisite amount of picks, turnovers, so on and so forth. And so we look for ways that the Bears can solidify the defensive line by finding a defensive playmaker. Some would say that the defensive end to match Montez Sweat opposite side would be the most important thing on the line. However, as I've seen with great quarterbacks like Tom Brady, if you apply pressure to the middle, you can get the greatest of quarterbacks to go ahead and tap dance and lose all credibility as being the great ones that they are. And so for me, personally, I do believe that the Bears could focus on someone in a free agent capacity. Maybe it'd be a Milton Williams from Philadelphia. Super Bowl champ. Going to command a lot of money this year. Still young. I think he's 27. And so I do believe he has the opportunity for the Bears to go ahead and, one, solidify them in that gap. He can play all gaps, the 3 and the 0 in terms of techniques. And frankly, he's a proven commodity. While I would take somebody like a Mason Graham from Michigan, you would go out there and try to get you one of those younger prospects. And because while I like Mason Graham, he may be the top prospect. There are several other defensive tackles and defensive ends in the draft. As I think that while this may not be the strongest draft, it has been alleged to be one of the deepest drafts in terms of fortifying both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line. And so with that being said, maybe the players that you get are not day one starters on defense. Maybe you've already addressed those through free agency. And so Milton Williams, Andrew Billings comes back healthy, and Javon Dexter takes a step in the forward direction again. I think he can improve so much more than last year, and he did have improvements. And that gives you what I think is a nice triumvirate. If that doesn't work for you or tickle your fancy and you want to be a bit cheaper and go draft and a cost-efficient defensive tackle, Detroit has a guy by the name of Leroy Onwuzurike. I think while he may command more of a proven penny, he would not command the dollar amount of a Milton Williams. Still allows you to be flexible to draft a Mason Graham if he were to fall to you at 10, or even, like I said, we're trading back later into the first round or something to that degree. Maybe you focus on it in the second or third round. But I do believe that Milton Williams will be the ideal. And I do want to stock everything with a veteran presence and fortify everything through the draft. If that can be achieved, I think that gives you the best chance for every player that you've drafted to grow and properly develop. And it also gives you the opportunity for immediate success right now. And while we talk about immediate success right now, there are several guys that have vaulted themselves way up the draft board on the defensive end, outside of, what do you call it, the two main defensive tackles, which would be Smell the Roses, Miss Raquel Rose. We are talking football. We are trying out something a bit different today, a little bit of a camless stream. Usually I have co-hosts. Those guys are away being parents, and so we are focusing in on the wish list of the Chicago Bears 2025. Mercer University Bear. All Bears work for me. Golden Bears, Grizzly Bears, Brown Bears, and Mercer Bears. I am an Alabama State Marching Hornet myself. No bear there. But hey, with that being said, we talk sports all the time. I am a Chicago Bears fan. And as I stated, we are talking defensive tackles right now as my wish list for the Chicago Bears and how I think they can address the offseason. I really want some different results. I do believe that comes along with trying things a bit different. And so with that being said, I just gave out my particular favorite for a free agent signing, which would be Philadelphia defensive tackle Milton Williams, a 27-year-old mammoth of a man. Plug up the middle, and they can also go ahead and draft someone. With that being said, I move on to the defensive end, and I will be by to check out some more of your content today or tomorrow, I should say. I do appreciate you pulling up, hanging out. Thank you for the subscription. As you know, I am daily trying to grow. We are working on things daily to put out content, and sometimes that content actually comes via emails, it comes via my Discord and things like that. So we're working out ways to be better on YouTube, as I have been a live streamer on Twitch for about 3 years. YouTube is a new beast, and I am learning daily that it's a beast that I have to go ahead and learn how to tame. To be able to do that, we're going to talk defensive ends, and Josh Sweat, Khalil Mack. The Mack is back. Khalil Mack actually played for the Bears 2018 through 2021. Khalil's a bit more longer than tooth now. I believe Khalil is 36. Older by football standards, but still with 5.5 sacks last year. And I believe 16 the year before with 7 in one game. Khalil still adds enough pinch or bite in your free agent market to go ahead and sign him to maybe a 2-year deal. Gives you the flexibility to have him get a lot of money up front, pair up with Montez Sweat, and you also get to go ahead and draft a proverbial young guy, whether it be the Sheard cat from Texas A&M, any of the other young guys that kind of drafted themselves or vaulted themselves to the draft board during the combine. You can go for the all-out, I think, de facto number one defensive end in free agency, which is Josh Sweat. The Philadelphia Eagles will have a lot of people on this list because obviously they're the champs, and when you are the champion, people want to poach all of your players because they look the best right then. People smelling those roses at that point, to use a pun, and they want the best of the best on their team. And everyone who's on a championship team is seen to be the best, even if they're not. So they're going to be up for hefty paydays, I should say. And so Josh Sweat, to pair up with Montez Sweat, I think would be something that is a kind of a wish list for me. I like the marketing aspect to it, of the Sweat and Sweat. But if we wanted to be a bit more nostalgic about it, Khalil Mack is indeed the more productive of the two. Josh is younger. Josh will require a lot more long-term money, and it will give you a bit less flexibility because there are people that we have to sign on the team already coming up. With that being said, hopefully, I believe that Khalil Mack will be the potential replacement to Mr. Walker, who left. Not the Mr. Walker from the SBC, but Mr. Walker from the Tennessee Titans, whose first name It's not coming to me at all. DeMarcus, there it goes right there. I knew it would. And if we want to be bargain friendly, none other than a Dennis Allen reunion. The defensive coordinator has coached Chase Young. Chase Young would in turn have a reunion with Montez Sweat, whom he played with in Washington as the number 2 overall pick when he was drafted there. And he will get to recreate the magic that he had in terms of having his best defensive season with the defensive coordinator Dennis Allen in New Orleans. Dennis was the head coach there, but he is now my defensive coordinator in Chicago. And so I do believe that the pairing, if they wanted to go for a more cost-efficient, low-risk, high-reward type of player, then a player like Chase Young or Azeez Ojulari are a bit more the players that you go after. Players that I think take more one-year prove-it deals. Yes, they do have a bit more risk inherent to them, but at the same time, it does give you the opportunity to maximize the productivity due to history has sapped them of playing time, but along with not playing, it has preserved their bodies, made them a bit more able to take a beating for a longer time. And hopefully with those guys being added via the defensive end and defensive tackle positions, free agent-wise, it once again gives you the opportunities to trade back, which brings me to my favorite position to talk about right now. And while I understand we've talked extensively about both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line, because those are, in fact, the most important and the things that we need to focus in on most, I think, for the Bears to have the most success. Ultimately, a balanced offense goes along with the run and the pass game. I do believe that in order to have the penultimate offense and replicate what they've done in Detroit for several years, we have to have another running back. I do not think that the running back depth that we have in the team right now is sufficient enough to go ahead and win us a given amount of games. I think every position group should be able to win a game for you in the regular season. And while I like DeAndre Swift, I do not know that Swift alone or Ian Wheeler coming off of a ACL tear and an undrafted free agent, so an unproven NFL talent, I don't know if they have exactly what it takes to be able to command the running room. My wonder is if they will go ahead and draft a running back. My only wonders about that is not that they will draft one, but where. There's been speculation because of the recent trade and free agent signing of both Jonah Jackson and Joe Tooney on the offensive line. Gives you a bit more flexibility in terms of draft picks that you need to address the offensive line, especially if they were to sign Drew Dahlman in the offseason. It kind of makes me wonder or have trepidations about whether or not they would draft Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State. Personally, my wish list of a running back to be drafted, and I only want drafted running backs. I want nobody's leftovers in the league because you have wear and tear, and you have to be paid. A running back is a cost-efficient position. If you can get a real dogged one that's going to do the job for you, especially for his first 4 years being cost control, and then you have to pay him if you want, go right ahead. I am a North Carolina Tar Heel Stan. I love him. Those are my favorites besides my beloved alma mater. And whom other would I want us to draft besides Marion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina, 6'2", 221, 4.4 speed in the 40. I think that is a home run hitter for the Bears, and I do believe that is a guy that the Bears could trade back and maybe get later in the first round. So maybe you trade back with like a San Diego, or I should say Los Angeles Chargers, maybe for like the 22nd pick I believe they have. You get back in the mid-20s, you go ahead and pick a guy like Amarian Hampton. I would not be mad at all. Or if you were to wait until the second round and go ahead and get a guy like Cam Scatterbo, running back from Arizona State. I believe Cam is more of a Christian McCaffrey-esque type of back, where I believe Amarian fits into a mold that may be similar or reminiscent to Jahmyr Gibbs. While they may not be the same player, those two running backs would be my favorites to draft if we had to. Of course, late first round and after. Otherwise, if you have to go into it and I have to choose other persons, Ashton Genty is not a bad person to choose as a running back. And look out for, in the second round appearance, the Iowa running back Caleb Johnson. I do believe has the opportunity to don blue and orange, as he may be somewhat similar to a DeAndre Swift, but he may have more of an upside because he's younger, more cost effective, and hell, he just might pop in a way that this other guy hasn't in all the years he's been there. Now, for me, I do believe that the Bears building depth on both sides of the ball would be critical. They have to add depth to both positions. We had a lot of offensive line injuries last year, and that was magnified by the lack of depth that we had. And so I think that is especially important for us to have. Shannon, what about a trade confuses you specifically? Because the Bears made a couple trades today, and I think trades only confuse people oftentimes for a trade value. And so if we can understand the trade value that a player may have to a team and to a salary cap, it kind of helps you understand why they may trade a certain player or how trades come about in the NFL, at least. Shannon Sharp. Let me tell you, if Shannon can give me 1/25th of his subscribers, 1/25th, he only got to be 5%. I wouldn't even know what that is, but out here doing his thing. And Raquel, when you think about things like that, to having a side, I got my bachelor's degree in therapeutic recreation. I got my master's degree in healthcare management. I really didn't ever understand when I was a kid that sports broadcasting and broadcast journalism was something that I could look into as a profession, major, career, so on and so forth. I may have missed my calling, but at the end of the day, you take your L, you carry the mail, you keep on pushing out there. And she says, like choosing someone you don't really want to go after who you want later. Well, you see, sometimes, like, for example, in the draft, if I were to trade up or trade back, the board tells me, or the board in terms of how they were to go ahead and select people, if a lineman is, let's say he's the third best lineman in the draft, just because he's the third best lineman doesn't mean he's the third best player. And so by proxy, he won't be drafted third overall. However, if he's the third best lineman, I may be able to get him into, let's say, a second or a third round pick. And if I have the first round pick 16 overall, but I think that I can go ahead and trade back and that guy will still be available on the board at, let's say, 38 in the second round, by all means, what I want to do is try to acquire more assets and have more opportunities to draft better players. So if a player is not as valued by my team, for example, we talked about the offensive line and the defensive line for the Bears. Those two positions are a bit more integral to what the Bears want to do for having success this season. And so we pick at the 10th position. If at 10, let's say a Mason Graham, Will Johnson, let's say a Abdul Carter even. Let's say all three of those guys were available. At 10, if I decided that I wanted to have one of those guys and all three would be there for me to pick, one of them at least, I'm going to evaluate as a team how far back those players will drop in order for me to go ahead and relinquish that pick while recouping additional draft picks so that someone who really wants, let's say, quarterback, they always want quarterbacks, someone would trade up to 10 with me in order to go get a quarterback before he came off the board. I want that linebacker that's not as popular as the quarterback. So I don't have to take this boring, nondescript lineman at pick 10. I can take him at 22. It makes sense for me to get then trade back to 22. The person who wants to pick at 10, they're going to give me something else as well. So maybe they're going to give me fourth round pick as well, an additional fourth round pick, and maybe they'll give me a sixth next year. So now I have 2 extra picks to draft other players that may do just as well for my team or better, and I also have the player that I actually coveted, and he just happened to fall back into my lap. So it's like waiting on the item to come on sale. Why would you spend full price on something from, IKEA? I heard you use the term. When I can wait until it's on sale because I know it will go on sale and it will be just as beneficial for me to do so at that point. So trades are like sale items and things like that. I don't want to buy at full price. If I can go ahead and strategize to pull back and get it at the price that I want it, it's a negotiation within a negotiation amongst general managers. I kind of like the chess match there. Gives me some sort of excitement to think about the way in which they go about executing those things. It just kind of works out for me a bit better. They are, Raquel, they super smart. Most GMs, agents are lawyers, or they have lawyer degrees. They have law degrees. And so the way in which they analyze this cap, like a capologist, I don't know if I can kind of agree you got to have to be a capologist. At the same time, I do believe that the way in which they think about these things are not rudimentary at all. And they think about things at a level well beyond the surface, whereas everything for me is surface level and at a fan's understanding. Whereas the GM is drafting somebody today that is potentially going to be on the team for 3 to 6 years of production. And I got to be able to weigh out where I draft him, because if I draft you in the first round, you're guaranteed what they call a 5th-year option. That 5th-year option, if you perform up to par, I have to go ahead and acknowledge you in that 5th year if I want to keep you on my team. And that means I have to give you an allotted amount of money that was already slotted for my salary cap. Whereas if you're a second-round pick and below, you're not guaranteed that 5th year option, and therefore I don't have the added year of control of a player. So sometimes I may want a player so bad, and I know that he'll be available in the second round or the third round, but in order for me to get extra year of cost-controlled effectiveness on him, meaning I don't have to pay him $28 million, I can still get him at the highest in his contract, maybe $6 to $7 million. I'm going to trade up, try to get into the first round so that I can get that guy and go ahead and make him a first-round selection so that I have 5 years of control on his contract as opposed to 4. Because after the first round, it's 4 years of control, and then we have to negotiate that much quicker. The better you are when you're a lesser-round pick, the harder it is for a team to keep you because they got to give you instant money, and it makes them have to go ahead and deal with the first-round draft picks. Right now, if you paid any attention whatsoever, the Cincinnati Bengals have 2 wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Both of those guys do contracts. T. Higgins just got franchise tagged, whereas Jamar Chase was their first-round draft pick the year after T. Jamar is that guy. Jamar is an absolute wonderful. I can't even get it out. I'm a little tipped. Wonderful wide receiver, and I think that he deserves all of the money he's going to get. T. Higgins is on par to be just as good, and he's a bigger body. They might not want to pay both of them. And so, since T was a second-round pick, T doesn't have the 5th-year option, so they had to franchise tag him twice, and that cost them a lot more money by not having the extra year control. Having that year control is kind of what everybody needs, and like you said, that right there gives them a lot of pressure, or gives them the pressure to get it right, because typically, if you don't get it right in 2 cycles as a GM, meaning if you pick 2 quarterbacks or if you pick 2 coaches, typically you don't get any more chances and you fired. So you get paid the big bucks, you get to go through all the analytics, you get to go in through all of the glitz and glam, the private jets, you get to be the face of the franchise, and so in that regard, all of the pressures come along with that. The big picture on all of it, bottom line, is that the Bears have to get the offensive line signings right this year. My defensive line has to stay a bit more healthy. and my coaching staff, because this is the first time they've done things a bit differently in terms of how they spent and whom they spent on. Not just a nondescript candidate nobody knows. They will cut you. Coach Raquel, I tell everybody, I carry mail. I am in a union, and I tell all of my coworkers and my supervisors, I am a mailman, one, because I was somebody's supervisor and I was supervisor of union employees, and I know very well that coaches get hired to get fired. No coach supersedes the whole team. They don't ever replace the whole team. They will replace a coach. And so if you don't get the most out of a team as a coach, you're fired. And conversely, if you, the GM, don't give the coach enough to get the most out of a team, you next. And you get all of the power, you get all of the glory, all of the praise. So I need you to take all the responsibilities and go ahead and realize that big picture for us, the Bears got the assets to make the jump this year. The team got cap space. We still got about $50 million in cap space, and that's not counting all of these. Hey, it's nothing I could do to talk to that guy in terms of not privatizing my business. There are a lot of things that may benefit and stimulate in a lot of ways. The privatization of the post office, I never thought I'd care about it. I have to care about it, and it makes me tune in and lean into things politically that maybe I wouldn't have. And like being a union steward, because Wednesdays is kind of a crazy day. I get steward meetings on Wednesday nights once a month, so that makes my streams kind of push back. But to learn how the political aspects of life balance out with work and home life, it's kind of eerie and scary to say the least. At the same time, it does have me to understand things in a way from a position above me that has me to focus on things in a lot more of a macro perspective. And I think when we talk about the macro look of things, the general manager has the opportunity to look at things from a very macro level instead of micro, and he has to look at not only the players that are on the team now, the players that he wants to bring to the team, and the players that may be on the team moving forward, if in fact they render the success that he has anticipated they'll give him. If we make the right moves this offseason, just like any of those presidential plans, it'll make Ryan Poe's presidency in terms of being a general manager a successful one. You know what happens when you are considered a successful president? Nobody forgets. If you are a horrible president, nobody forgets. The ones in the middle, nobody talks about. And so as much as I don't want to be polarizing for the wrong reasons, we have been in quite a few seasons in my lifetime been absolutely that. Nonetheless, just like my page in terms of being better, looking better, performing better, I want my Chicago Bears to go ahead and do the same things. Look at it. You better thank a union member. The CDC. Raquel, I went to school in Alabama, so I hear y'all talk about Atlanta and everything a lot. You realize everybody in Alabama, when I was in school, all wanted to hang out and rep Atlanta. So I did my bid in the South. We gonna wrap it up there. Like I said, today is a solo day. We do have 3 screens, and I do have co-hosts. Nonetheless, the page itself is here to drop sports content and have sports dialogue. I will be looking forward to doing a bit of a collab with a knock-knee tyrant they call G Honda. You might have heard of him. We're going to go ahead and get with him and see how exactly we can put some things together so that I can possibly make us a nice little appearance over there on the Steelmatic Network, see what's going on. Other than that, we're going to do things daily by dropping shorts as I usually do, dropping videos, doing my lives once a week, and trying to do the things that I know to do to build content, build continuity, and build a community. I'm a part of the community, as you know, that we all got introduced to in along these journeys just the same way. I watched Mr. Walker and them since Bangadaya and Surge and all the other guys when there was nothing but guys on their panel. I done saw the evolution. While I can never ever profess to get there, we do understand that the work starts at the bottom and you keep moving on up. With that being said, I am your Postmaster General. We talk sports, we talk life, we gonna talk Bears. Until then, we will talk to you later. Thank you so much, Raquel. Ain't nobody to tell to go hit your page up, but I promise you one day we will be able to go ahead and support your page just the same way. I can only do it myself right now because we are Army of One, but we're going to keep it going. Until then, I will talk to you and everybody else in other streams. Check me out next week. Check out the content daily. This is Mailbox Sports signing off. I will talk to you later. We are out.